It's the morning of September 7th, and we are still in hurricane prep mode, getting ready for one of the most powerful hurricanes ever to be tracked in the Atlantic Ocean. No pressure or anything, but there's still a little bit of time to check out a few places just for fun. And I've got to go to the beach, and it's specifically Lake Worth Beach, which I spent a lot of my childhood at.
So I'm here at Lake Worth Beach. Figured take one last look. Today is September 7th, and of course we're anticipating a pretty big impact from Hurricane Irma as we go. And just wanted to point out a couple things and just look. This nice dune area that we've been hoping to restore, this is sort of our best chance at retaining some beach. If you look farther down, when we have a lot more just seawall, seawalls really don't do well in these types of storms overall. We really want the vegetation to be here, and there's definitely going to be some major damage if we get this storm coming up our coast to the dune system. But that is part of it, and it's kind of interesting too how calm the water is today. Definitely a prelude to what's to come. Calm out here. Hurricanes, as it is, really do show the dynamic, powerful nature of nature and the Earth itself. People tend to think of the Earth as very static, but we do have geological processes, climate processes, and weather processes that are going on, and they can totally disrupt our lives like Irma is right now. And one of the things to remember about hurricanes too is that they do provide functions in global climate patterns. They take a lot of heat and moisture from the tropics and kind of bring it out towards the poles. So they are kind of an equalizer of heat, energy, temperature throughout the world as well. But of course, as they say, Mother Nature doesn't really care if you're there or not. So I'm going to get back to preparing now, but I definitely wanted to take a minute and touch the Atlantic again before it gets really, really rough.
In 1913, you could actually take a ferry across Lake Worth and visit the beach and the casino. So this is a pretty historic building. It's had its issues with hurricanes over the years, of course. This whole complex has been renovated recently, so Irma's going to be really a test for all this new construction. People don't always realize that barrier islands are inherently transient. They're affected by waves, wind, continually all year long, reshaping them. And storms like Irma definitely have an effect on coastlines. They can break through dune systems, create new inlets, and move sand around into different areas. But of course, we like to build here because we want to live on the beach. The result of that is mandatory evacuations for Hurricane Irma here on the island. And it's not just those on the beach and on the island. Here I'm driving through an area with lots of mobile homes and trailer parks, and this is also mandatory evacuation right now. And I cannot stress enough how important it is for people to evacuate when they're in these zones. It is really dangerous to stay there. Now we'll get into my neighborhood. I am not in an evacuation zone. Most of the houses in this area were built in the mid-1950s, and they're all block houses. They're very, very solid. And a lot of them, of course, have received new roofs, including mine over the years. Due to the new building codes, roofs really need to have all sorts of straps and clamps inside to help hold the roof on. So we're going to be testing that out here in the next couple of days. Well, it's getting close to noon. I've managed to go to the doctor's because I'm starting to get a sinus infection, and did the little stop at the beach, got some more batteries at Costco, and helped my mom out with a few things, and now I'm gonna start working on my own house. So
getting ready for the storm, and one of the things I'm doing is filling up these milk jugs with water and then freezing them to create a big block of ice. And of course, a little science behind that. When you do freeze water, of course, water being a polar molecule, because there are polar covalent bonds between the oxygen and hydrogen, you have hydrogen bonding and whatnot, and that creates some really unique properties for water. One of them is the fact that as you transition generally from a gas liquid to a solid, your density increases, gets more dense, basically more stuff per volume. But with water, it doesn't. At the freezing point, water density actually decreases and water expands in volume. And of course, I knew this, but I still filled this up a little bit too much, this first one. Probably filled it to about here, and it expanded out the top and actually kind of came out the top and froze. But that's okay. It'll still work. These will keep any cooler or even the refrigerator cold for a little while, a few days at least, after the power goes out. So we're working on it as fast as we can. Right, so we're putting up shutters. I'm working on the front window here. I've got the nice Miami-Dade code shutters on these. Unfortunately, I don't have them for everything, but at least I have them for a couple of rooms. And this will be a big test for them. So here we go. So what do you do after you get finished putting up all your shutters? You go in the pool, that's what you do. Well, I didn't get into the tracks today much, but the story really hasn't changed a whole lot. We're still sort of stuck between that Bermuda high and that trough coming down, and Irma really wants to go north, and we really want her to go north much sooner, but basically she's up against that wall of that high pressure. So some of the latest models as of 5 p.m. actually showed it going a little bit more west after really tracking a little farther east over the last couple of days. The main forecast model seems to really be following that the European model. They seem to have a lot of confidence in that, but I figure we're going to have some wobbling for a little while. If it does go a little west where it's actually projecting right now, it would actually be a little better for us here on the coast, really just 40-50 miles away from that eye. We're still going to have a really rough ride. This is a strong storm. You know, it's something that most people in this area have not seen the likes of in their lifetimes. So it's kind of scary. But just that 40-50 mile difference from the eye could make a lot of difference in the intensity of the wind, and this really is going to be a wind event. But I worry about the glades, you know, Pahokee, Belglade, and the lake. A lot of the structures over there are not very good, and a lot of wind can really damage them significantly. Even though this isn't necessarily going to be a rain event per se, we're probably still going to see flooding out there in different areas. Probably not as bad as some storms, obviously, but the wind is going to be pretty severe. And if it does track that way, it's going to be significant to them. They are evacuating most of those areas too right now, which is something, you know, we don't always see. But in this case, I think everybody recognizes the danger with that potential track. But we are definitely not out of the woods. It could still come right up the coast and hit us, and it could also veer a little farther west into the west coast of Florida and Tampa and whatnot. So, you know, we're really just going to be waiting on this thing to turn Saturday afternoon and night, and that's really when we're going to know what's going on. So that's all we really can do today. I've got my house together, my parents' house is together. You know, we've got a few more things to do tomorrow, but mostly it's easy sailing at this point. Spending some time relaxing and enjoying some wonderful Florida weather before we experience the very worst Florida weather has to offer. So until next time.